Hey everybody, it's Rob from VRA Realty Alliance. Today I'm interviewing Steve Laret. He's a realtor here in Pennsylvania, and he is an expert in helping people buy and sell houses at the same time. We've got some really cool tips and tricks. I got a house to sell, I got to buy. What do I do? How do I make this work logistically with the money? It's tricky, but we've got some really cool things, and even COVID in some senses has made one trick a little bit easier. All right, stay tuned. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you're getting good value from this content, and let's get into it. Hey Steve, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. How about you?
Keeping busy, having fun, you know?
Good, good. Well, thanks for having me on, dude.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to have you on. I know you're a master of buying and selling homes at the same time. Steve Laret team does a ton of business, and I've just seen you really excel when somebody has to both sell their home and buy another home and trying to make that work, especially in this crazy competitive market. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the most important thing to start thinking about when you've got that situation?
It's going to be really easy to sell. It's going to be really difficult to buy. And I think properly preparing your clients and setting expectations up front as to what they can expect on the buy side is a big deal. Because it's a market like I've never seen, in that about 6 months ago, when he thought it couldn't get any crazier, it's been such a pressure cooker, for 4 years, really, since 2016. And it just keeps getting ratcheted up more and more and more. And about 6 months ago, it kind of gave wind to if you want to get your offer accepted, you're waiving all inspections. As a conscientious client advocate, that's not a comfortable position to be in. There are a couple of different ways that you can make it more comfortable for your clients, just by using, simple intelligence and logic. If it's in a subdivision that we're all built at the same time by the same builder, you can research all of the other comps in the neighborhood that have sold in the last couple of years and determine what's the fallout rate. How many of them have actually blown up in inspections? But by and large, if you're in some sort of a subdivision that was built all around the same time by the same builder, you can look at the history of that subdivision and draw some pretty good conclusions as to how safe our money's going to be here, and then go forward.
I was looking at a house in Delaware, and it had stucco on the outside. So I just took my client and we started walking around to see if people were getting stucco repair work done, on the other houses. Yeah. And yes, they were. And then we started talking to the neighbors and really found out, hey, this neighborhood had stucco issues. So I think when you can know those things going in, that's definitely going to take some of the risk out for your buyers. And like you said, in this competitive market, you got to waive inspections a lot of the time. Yeah. So back to, you're buying and selling at the same time. So you're saying, hey, buying is going to be a lot tougher than selling right now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like about, okay, if you're going to buy a house, right, and you're looking at selling your house currently, how do you kind of try to time that? What do you think about when you're trying to figure that out?
Yeah, I always think it's beneficial if clients have some sense of the market going in. So before we put their house on the market, I like for them to be seeing the inventory that's out there and, seeing a couple of things that they like and really honing their sense of that sort of intrinsic sense of value. And then when they feel like they're ready, to make the leap, then we're going forward, we're doing it. It's always great to find out if they can do it without selling first. A lot of people, sure, it's a lot more comfortable to have your house sold. But if you have the means to do it without selling your house first, then you're going to be in the best position. What it comes down to is sellers want to accept the offer that shows the greatest amount of reward for the least amount of risk.
All right. So you're saying, hey, start out by getting a feel for your market as a buyer and understanding. I know what you mean, because in the buying process, you kind of need to get people there where they're really ready to buy a house because they understand the market, they understand their price point, they understand what the market's offering them, where they're at. So they feel like, hey, when we find it, we're really ready to pull that trigger and move on the house. That makes a ton of sense to me, like starting right there with prepping them basically to be ready to go when they need to go.
The last resort is really doing the buy sell, right? If we can avoid it, then avoid it. A lot of times people don't think about, well, I've got this money in a 401k that I can liquidate, and if I return it in a certain amount of time, there's no penalty, right? If that's, but they just don't think because they feel like, well, that's locked up. But if you can get at the liquidity that you need to make it happen without having to do this simultaneously, that's the way to go. So I always try to explore every financial possibility with them before we make the decision to, to go into battle on the buy sell.
The 401k is a really good point, because what do you have, like 90 days or 120 days?
Yeah, to get it back. And it's like, you don't need it until you're settling.
So that's a really interesting strategy, because you can, and I think even right now with COVID, they've like loosened some restrictions on removing money from your 401k and having like 3 years or something right now to put it back. That's a brilliant thing. I never really even thought about, because that gives you your down payment plus closing costs right there. Yep. And as long as you can still qualify for the mortgage, for both mortgages, I guess. Do you ever recommend people take a HELOC or home equity line of credit against their first?
I mean, I've got one of them going right now. I don't recommend it because obviously if you could avoid paying interest on money, it's better to not do that. Sure. And a HELOC in and of itself comes with closing costs and sort of collateral damage. And I don't have any great commercial lenders or HELOC guys or anything like that I really consistently go to. So they're a bit of a wild card. So I would prefer not to put a loan on top of a loan. But you could also, in borrowing from the 401k, ironically enough, I'm a big advocate, obviously, and I know you are too. You want to build wealth through real estate. That's really the goal, the mission for us, is to help our clients to become wealthier as a byproduct of our relationship with them. And a lot of times for me, that means advising them to keep their house because it's expensive to go buy an investment property that isn't going to be your primary residence. It is cheap to maintain your primary residence with respect to what it costs to go out and buy another primary residence or another investment property. It's inherently cash cheap to just keep what you've got. So if you can borrow from the 401k to make your down payment on your new primary and then lease out your existing, that cash flow can actually help you. That can give you more liquidity on the other side. You can actually get approved for more money if you can show that you've got a lease in on your primary. So a lot of times we'll do something where they borrow from the 401k so we know that we have the money to put on the down payment. And in the meantime, we'll lease their primary so that they can keep it. And then they'll actually bolster their income on the other side.
So when you lease their primary home, do they move out and go rent something for a little bit, or what are you thinking?
No, we just set up a lease and we have it start on the settlement date or a week after the settlement date for their new primary.
Some gold here, Steve. You see why you're the master of this whole thing. I mean, thinking about, I don't know what kind of realtor you are though, because you're not going to get a commission on selling that first house. So you must be crazy or something.
I mean, my thought process has always been give people great advice, become more than a transactional agent. Okay, great. I don't get paid on that transaction, but I get paid on every single one of their friends that is ever going to do a transaction because I'm the guy that went in and told them to keep that because it'll be better for your future. Trust is far more valuable than a transaction.
I actually just had something like that happen. It took 2 years to play out, but I'm helping them buy a house right now and just they rented out a property for 2 years. Now they just sold that. It gave them a big down payment for their next house. And awesome. Yeah, I mean, that can definitely work. Okay, cool. So if you can figure out a way basically to keep your first house and rent it out, you're building wealth through real estate. Mm-hmm. And if you get a lease in place, you're now able to count that income towards your overall income to help qualify for your next house. Mm-hmm. And you could potentially borrow from your 401k right now in this temporary situation to help with your down payment on your next house. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a pretty cool strategy. Well, tell me about, I know in some cases people can basically double close. Mm-hmm. And there's a thing called a leaseback. Can you explain what a double close leaseback is?
Sure. So the leaseback is basically the seller has not found where they're going to go yet, or they're not ready to vacate the house. And the leasebacks become a lot more popular recently because the market is so tough and it's so difficult to do a buy sell, because when you're home sale contingent, the offers that you're making are less favorable. They're looked upon less favorably by the sellers that you're seeking to make those offers on, because it's an enhanced level of risk. But ultimately, if you've got 10 offers in front of you and 5 of them are some variation of home sale contingent, those are going to be the weaker ones. And the only way that you're going to accept one of those over one that is not home sale contingent is if one of them is markedly higher than the others. And so a lot of times in those cases, right, risk versus reward. The only way that you can mitigate the risk, you have to make it worth it, which means the people that are in those positions, home sale contingent positions, when making offers, expect to overpay for the house. Because otherwise there's no reason for the seller to take on the enhanced level of risk. Remember, they have to, particularly in these trying times, they have to not only accept the buyer that shows up the strongest financially and represents the least risk and highest reward in terms of their BFI. What do they have in the bank? Do they have funds to close the gap between offer and appraisal? Are they in jeopardy of losing their job? This economy is very, very tumultuous. So they have to accept not only the buyer that represents the strongest financial position and is offering the greatest reward, but if you're home sale contingent, now they're not just accepting you as the buyer, they're accepting a whole nother level of risk in the buyer of your home. The simultaneous buy-sell is more difficult, and you have less leverage as a buyer to get it done, so you're likely going to pay a higher price. However, you can do it. The leaseback has really come into play because the sellers, if they can avoid it, don't want to be in that position. So what the sellers want to do is they put their house on the market. They want the fastest settlement that they could possibly get, because then they're a cash buyer, or at least they're conventional non-contingent. They're in a month-to-month rental. And so what sellers are pushing for is a quick close. Right now, quick is about 40 days due to appraisals if you need financing, and tax certs are also dragging. So sellers want the lease back because they can settle on their house, stay in their house, gives them time to shop, gives them time to close, and then they can move one time.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, from both sides, right? So we're always talking about when you're making an offer for a buyer, right? Understanding what the other side wants, right? Mm-hmm. I have a deal in Wilmington right now where basically we're actually buying a duplex, and we said to the seller, hey, please take our offer. We will rent you the rest of the month after closing for $1, and then we will offer to rent you additional 5 more months at $1,000 a month until you find your house and are ready to move, and you can rent the top unit. So my buyer's going to live in the bottom unit, they're going to live in the top, and they have up to 6 months to find that. Now, because the sellers are so in the driver's seat, we're willing to do that, sure, as the buyer. Sure. So I think that's an interesting thing to think about, because as a seller, and you say, hey, you want my house? Okay, well, I need to buy something else. I need you to understand that, and I need you to play with me, play the game with me and help me get a lease back on my current property.
Well, Kelly just had one where they gave him, I think, 3 months completely for free.
3 months free.
3 months free. I mean, it's something else to consider. Buyers don't really have a mortgage payment for the first month and a half.
Right.
So what are we really talking about? If the property rents for $2,000 and you're going to give it to them for 3 months for free, you're only paying for a month and a half of that. So what are we leveraging? $2,500 to get the offer accepted? It's hardly anything in the grand scheme of things.
It's so smart if you can because then basically once you're in that lease back and you're moving through the process, and you may, again, you can keep it flexible, right? We may rent it up to 3 months, but we may move out in 2 months, we may move out in 1.
Sure.
But and keeping that flexible as when you're selling your house, that's going to just make you, again, you're not contingent anymore, because it's like, okay, yeah, we're past inspections, we're past appraisal, we got like 15 days left to close, but we've got a lease back for another 2 to 3 months, sure, whatever it is. And then you've got that time to get your house. You're totally not contingent. You don't have a mortgage over your head. Mm-hmm. You've got your cash in hand,
mm-hmm. And it's a lot of sellers kick back a little bit if they have to rent the house back from the buyers. Sure. They push back on the rent, or, as an agent, you have to really help them wrap their minds around, yes, I know it feels strange to now rent your house from the buyers, but it might make you $20,000 in the purchase.
You're you can get a mortgage contingency right now. I mean, that's how crazy it is. So
Yeah.
trying to get mortgage contingency, inspection contingency, and home sale contingency, it's like you're on the bottom of the other 20 offers that's out there. So you definitely have to use some of these creative strategies, or you're just not making it happen.
We just had 10 offers on a property in Coatesville, and we had one that was $15,000 above the rest, but it was financed, and the other were cash. We went to them and said, we need a $20,000 non-refundable deposit. If for any reason you decide not to go through, their response was, well, you know, if the guy loses his job, he doesn't want to be out 20 grand. Our response was, yeah, that would suck for everybody. But that's exactly the scenario why we need the 20 grand, because we're taking on the risk.
Right.
But we don't have to. We could just accept the cash offers. But if you want us to take on the financing, it's got to be a sizable non-refundable deposit.
Right. Every contingency costs you money. That's really what people have to understand, because a deal is not just price, it's price and terms. And price is really just one of the terms of the deal.
And that's a super concise way of saying it, Rob. Every contingency costs you money. Right.
So it's ideally, if you're in that, hey, we've sold our house or almost sold our house, we're through appraisal, we're right close to the end, and then they're going under contract on something else, and they're just saying, hey, look, we're waiving our contingency on our home sale because we're willing to risk our deposit. I mean, that's really what the other thing people really need to understand. You're risking your deposit when you start waiving contingencies. So
there's a lot of intricate details there, but
well, that's what we get paid for, right,
Steve? There you go.
So is there anything else you want to say about this, buying and selling at the same time that we haven't covered?
Just really lean into the expert that you chose to guide you through this process. Despite the complexity of these types of deals in this kind of environment, even I still deal with the folks that are like, well, I really think, okay, that's fair. I appreciate that you're doing that. But you didn't sell 90 homes last year.
Right.
So I understand how this works. I understand what you think. I appreciate it, but you really need to lean into the experts, because you are just not going to step up to the plate and hit a home run, having not been in the cages 1,000 times prior. There's just still a remarkable audacity I find in the marketplace where people just think that this, all we're doing is just pushing some paperwork and figuring it out. And it's in fact a very complex psychological, if you're doing it well, if you're doing it right. 99% of the realtors out there don't know shit and are doing it all wrong. And they are probably, if you've got a brain and read a book, you as a consumer, a layperson, are as smart, if not smarter than they are. But the 1% that does this right and understands the complexities and the idiosyncrasies and the psychological component and all of those very, very subtle things, not everybody who picks up a paintbrush is an artist. And it is truly, it's a craft, and you need to commit yourself to mastering it. Don't think for 1 second that you can step up to the plate and just hit a home run as a layperson or even as an agent. It takes an incredible amount of diligence to get to an expert level. So the experts.
I think that's a really important point. I've been really helping people all over the country connect with those top level realtors in their market. And Steve, I know you serve basically the Philly suburbs, right?
Chester, Delaware, Montgomery County really is our hub. I want to keep it hyper local, where I'm an expert.
Awesome. Well, if someone in those counties, outside of Philadelphia wants to get in touch with you, talk about, buying and selling at the same time, or just pick your brain about real estate, what's the best for them to get in contact with you?
Definitely just call myself, 484-574-3174, or you can reach me on email at steve@team.com.
Thanks. I'll put your stuff down in the description down below so people get access to it. And I really appreciate your time today, Steve.
I appreciate yours, man. Thanks so much for reaching out, Rob.
Thank you.
Cheers, buddy.